Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Thoughts That Move. Thoughts That Move is a platform that invites artists of various mediums to come together and discuss issues of race in their community. I'm your host, Daniel Broxton, and these are our guests. First up, we have Alisa Guardiola, associated with La Mezcla, directed by Vanessa Sanchez. Alisa was born and raised in Austin, Texas, and spends her time between Austin and San Francisco. Alisa spends most of her time tap dancing, and her goal is to make dance an accessible career for everyone. Next up, we have Lucy Vosen. Lucy, currently living in Los Angeles, teaches yoga, manages a wellness center, and remains active in both the LA and Austin dance communities. Lucy has choreographed and curated dance performances for the New York-based Hoover Dam Collective, Flip Switch, and has presented work at the Jacob's Pillow Inside Out Festival. Lucy wants to help people feel like they can thrive exactly as they are. Will Walker was born and raised in Austin, Texas. Associated with Prince of Pumps and Electric City Dance Movement, Will is a contemporary heels dancer and wants to be able to provide quality dance training to the underprivileged East Side community. And last but not least, Marina DeYoe-Pedraza. Marina is an Ohio Rican raised in the Rio Grande Valley. Marina has lived in Austin for the past 5 years, performing as an actor, dancer, and puppeteer. She is a company member of Salvage Vanguard Theater, Glass Half Full Theater, and Ballet East. Marina's goal is for artists to cross-pollinate across mediums and industry lanes. Thanks for joining us. So let's go ahead and get into the conversation today. My question for you today is, should an artist have to be reputable to receive funding?
Every organization that is providing funding has to serve some sort of agenda for themselves, whether they're funding an artist that is in line with their core values, they're funding an artist that adds to maybe like a diversity thing that they're trying to like build within their own like optics. So I think somebody else can bring up here too, but what is reputable? And I think that that's what we've been trying to figure out between all of us.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say no, that you don't have to be reputable to receive funding, because exactly what Alisa is saying. And I feel like it stems from what is considered reputable in a lot of communities or a lot of cultures and a lot of this country is something that has been established and already has a lot of funding. Like there's a link between something being well-funded, making it reputable. And we can see it in a lot of the dance community that a lot of the money just keeps getting cycled to the same organizations and the same performing companies, which is usually like white ballet companies, because they are considered reputable. And so people feel safe sending money there, which means that there are a lot of communities and a lot of artists that are missing out because like it's the chicken or the egg. The money has to come in order to be able to build up into something that is considered reputable.
I think reputable is like a coded term for like whiteness or whiteness palpable, if that makes sense. So like Alisa talked about how like, oh, maybe they're trying to like check mark that diversity like box for their programming, and it's like a reputable artist is maybe it can be like a person of color, but for some reason the story that's being told is appealing for whatever I'm going to make an assumption here, but like a white audience or the white artistic director of that group or the whoever's in charge of greenlighting that grant. Not all of them, I'm sure, but that's at least the pattern that I've witnessed. I think reputable is just like a coded way of associating like privilege, affluence, and whiteness to a project.
When I hear a reputable company is receiving funding over and over again, and maybe for even up to decades, what were they producing? What was the general temperature of the artistic creations that were happening when they first received their funding ever? Because I what I'm hearing from Lucy and Marina is that it maybe in terms of like what we're thinking about is that potentially there's like a snowball effect, or like where they're receiving funding, and then the more they receive funding, it goes back into them being these organizations being able to create. Their end result might be more polished, than say a group of freelance artists that are all juggling 3 to 4 jobs or teaching at like 6 different studios, and they can only rehearse a few hours a month and they're begging for money. So what I'm trying to say is like maybe their work is more polished because they're getting funding, and then they continue to get funding, or someone or an organization continues to get funding. And I'm really interested if what happens if potentially there was a competitiveness to it, or some sort of more barriers to a lens at looking at how long have you been receiving funding and how much have you been utilizing that in a way that is keeping up with the temperature.
You hit the nail on the head for me. To like, I feel like it all kind of goes in the same bucket, right? That whole word and what it means and what it can be and what it can be utilized for. You know what I mean? Like to just say like, oh, well, that's not reputable. Well, why? Right? Is it because it's something that you personally would not have, involved your money in? Or is it just not reputable because it's unfamiliar? You know what I mean? It's not something you've seen before. So for my answer to that, no, you should not have to be a reputable artist to be able to receive funding, especially if it's taxpayer money, especially if it's for the general public. It should not go to these facilities because, again, what Alisa said, like you got these dancers who are working multiple jobs just to feed themselves. So of course, if they had the funding, then they could probably produce some projects that would, I don't know, even rival the ones with funding. Because how many times have you as an artist personally been sitting somewhere in a performance that you paid a ticket to get into and been disappointed because it's like, wow, that wasn't really worth the ticket that I paid to get in here. Like that kind of puts a bad taste in the mouth of the community whenever you have these companies that are receiving the funding and they're not producing the work that they're supposed to be producing at the level they should be producing for the money that they're getting. And at the same time, they're also making money off the backs of Black art forms as well. So if the cycle went as a it fed into each other, like the community paid into this entity, and then this entity offered free classes that would go into the community that comes to this performance, and then these kids can perform, and then they become company members, and then there's that funding. So it has to filter back to the community, and right now it's only filtering back into the hands of the owners, of the people who run the business, and then it just goes back and forth. So I think my question for, us in this funding conversation is, how do we get this loop to come over here? Mm-hmm. Right? So I feel like there's that reputable line, that that proverbial glass ceiling that we just can't pass because we're not getting the right representation.
Dancers are now emerging with student loan debt. And we have dancers that are trying to become professional dancers in this art form, but with student loan debt that we've never seen in generations before. And I'm wondering, in terms of that financial barrier, does having a BFA in dance, or does having training in an undergraduate degree make you reputable? Or are you more reputable if you've been working on your own projects, working on your own art for that same amount of time?
I think if you had asked me that question probably like 4 or 5 years ago when I was fresh out of undergrad, I'd be like, yeah, of course it makes me more reputable. That's why I went and got my BFA. But with the experience that I have now, with the other artists that I've met here in Austin who don't have BFAs and are brilliant performers and brilliant actors, I feel like I got by the academic by what my parents perceived as success, by what my parents perceived as reputable. I got by that. And I also got by like the fine arts program that I went to, the little fine arts that I had access to. I had a passion for performing, but I didn't feel I was reputable or competent enough to pursue it as a career. And that's why I pursued undergrad, and that's why I have student debt. So it's like the word reputable then becomes some sort of like goalpost for young people to want to achieve or check off, because there's a fallacy that you need to hit that goalpost in order to have a certain amount of success in life. And I will say, like, me having a BFA has allowed me to get jobs that are day jobs that involve theater, you know what I mean? Like, it has been helpful and it has made me reputable, but I'm like, are they also hoodwinked? Like, are the people who hired me also following the same like fallacy that like a degree makes you that much better of a performer or that much more competent of an artist?
Yeah, I feel like getting a degree, I mean, I got my degree at a conservatory, so it wasn't even like I was dancing 10 a.m. to often 10 p.m. 6 days a week. And that's what I did, for 4 years. And what I definitely do think I got out of it in a positive way was, I mean, I got good training. I came in as I had talent, but not a lot of like technique. And I came out as a really good technician and a really good performer. And I came out with a lot of connections. I came out with a lot of people that I knew, and I was part of this, I was a Purchase alum. So when I met other people who had gone to Purchase, there was this kind of like, oh, we're in the same community. Like, I'll help you out. So there was that kind of thing that like, I felt like it vouched for me. Like I was able to say like, you can believe me because I have this like piece of paper. And it didn't stop me from having to like take really shitty jobs. And like, I'm going to be paying the rest of my student loans for the next 15 years. And I'm not really using that degree anymore. And I remember in my like really low points of like being like bottle service girls that I got hired because I was a dancer. So I had like a dancer's body. And I remember walking around in my like dance costume, serving shots to people and being like, I have a degree in this. Like, thank God I went to college so that I could look like a dancer, so that I could the only way I could get paid was to take, less than wonderful jobs. But
yeah, and I feel like I'm on the other side of that. Like I had the opportunity to go and I just dropped out, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to have this body forever. And I think that was like that first time that I've ever gone against the dream, because let me tell you, growing up here in good old Texas, if you're a male and you're a dancer, you got two things. You either go to a studio and you become a director or some type of whatever, or you go into the school district. That's it. Like that's all you really can do as a male dancer in public education. So I went and I traveled and I performed and I just took whatever job. And then that's when I found out in the dance community, I don't know, for myself, it is not what you know, it is who you know. It's not like, oh, I have a degree in this, because I've stood in a room filled with other 5'9" black boys going after the same job, and none of them had a degree, but all of them were going to outdance me the minute they had a chance. So that kind of put me in the sense of like experiencing what the chase was like. So for me, I found my personal level of success and being reputable is just how much outreach that I was able to do, not just in the city that I was in. I didn't just stay confined in the circle that I grew up in. I left. And I think that's what makes you better when you leave and you're able to experience other communities and other cultures and how they do it. And then you bring it back to Austin and you're just kind of like, oh, I see what's going on here. Here's what's going on. Here's why we can't progress and move on to the next thing. Here's why we're still stuck in this little vicious cycle of like who gets money, when like everywhere else, other cities have already figured it out.
I think that you're bringing up great points about Reputable and who you know. I think that I love what Lucy brought up about being in school and when you were exiting school and entering, I believe, the New York dance scene. When you bring up your school, you have sort of a built-in community that you earned and that you participated in. And I think that that's one of the most important things, not just to talk about undergrad, but to talk about doing projects in general, which my brain is lighting up right now. But in terms of what projects am I taking? What projects am I doing for free? When do I not? That's a separate conversation. I know we're going to get into it, but something that Will, you're bringing up about who you know and who knows that you've done great work. I think this is fantastic. I know that I can say, I can be the most talented artist and I can offer something special. But if I can't personally write about my work in a way where somebody can believe in it, then I'm not going to be funded. Or I need to find someone who can write about my work for me. Not everybody, I don't have to do everything, but I need to find someone who would write it for me. And I do remember being an undergrad and our works of choreography wouldn't be produced unless we wrote about it. We had to present, this is what I want to do. This is the themes that will run through it. These are the kinds of artists I'll have in it. This is my vision for it. And I remember just complaining. I was in this classroom, like throwing the paper out, like, why don't they just see what I can do? Because trust me, I'm going to knock it out of the park.
I think as we are shifting now, I don't think it necessarily has to be like this like doctrine, like salute to whoever's giving you money, that like you are like this whole, like you don't have to bleed yourself on this paper. I don't think it has to be that. I think it just needs to be essentially a well thought out plan of what you're trying to do, how long it'll take you, and what it will cost. I feel like those are like the basic things. And then there should be some type of video submission. So that like your work should speak for itself rather than I have to write these essays, because man, I've done one of those funding, those like, you know, for doing applications to receive funding during COVID. And I mean, like, yeah, the application was probably like 5 pages long and I got to do it online, but like, these people don't know me from my application. Like I couldn't even put a video that was long enough to really show them anything that I could do. And then of course they're watching this, like they're watching an old video or they're watching something that I just put together. So I think it's going to be better whenever we can just submit our work, or at least submit something that represents our work and what we're trying to do, rather than it just being like an essay that we have to submit and then we have to hope that we get it. And then like, of course, when people see, you know, I would put it in a situation like this. So because we were born and raised here, if our names came across somebody's desk, maybe they might have heard of us through the grapevine because, you know, we're born and raised here. We've been in this community, but like that should not make us reputable over Lucy, right? Who's not from here. So it should just be like we're all in the same playing field. We all submit our video, and then like if there's enough for all of us to get it, great. But if there is an opportunity to give to someone who normally would not qualify, they should get it first. And usually I say that for, you know, any people of the, you know, Black and brown community, the, you know, underprivileged, everybody's poor. Everybody's been hit by COVID so much. So we have to revamp our community somehow. So we have to get the money into the people and the artists' hands, not the facilitators.
What's so interesting is like the parts of because grant applications I don't mind filling it out to get the moolah. I wish, like, I don't mind getting a letter of recommendation from somebody to like vouch for my work ethic and writing a proof of concept essentially and a budget of where that money's going to go and how I'm going to spend it. I feel like if I'm asking for my art to be subsidized by this like grant, I have to at least do that. I think where I get discouraged in regards to seeing friends of mine apply for funding and I myself apply for funding is like, whew, when like submitting the application has a fee. There's like a $50 fee to submit the application. It's like,
why do you need to take my money when I'm asking for money?
It's like, $50? Like, why are you taking $50 from me? I need it from you. And then the other thing that, and I talked about this the last time, which is like having, like, there aren't that many grants out there for just an artist trying to get like their hands on a couple of $1,000s to do some self-produced work. Like everything has to be tied through some sort of an organization, some sort of nonprofit usually. And when someone has that connection, going back to it's all who you know, when you know someone that can get you set up with a theater company or a dance company to be that like co-signer on your application, that's very convenient. But when you don't have those contacts, that's just another barrier. And I think that barrier is attached to this idea of reputable.
When I hear you talk about this, Marina, and I know that you've mentioned this when we've all been speaking before, but one time you brought up to us, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, about how long it takes you to fill out an application for a grant and how much energy and how much time goes into that, which I understand. Anybody that's even in other industries, you have to do a lot of lift. There's heavy lifting in order to move forward. And it's not just something that's only art industry based, but Marina, you really made an impression on me when you were speaking to us and you said it took so much energy that then maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you found it difficult to then be the creative artist that you knew you could be. Why can't all of us in this Zoom room right now start to create an Austin Artists Collective where we are sharing information. We're sharing, this is what I had to do for this grant. Like, what if we could build this whole conglomerate of that so that the lift that we're doing like alone isn't displacing the energy it does take in order to sustain ourselves.
I own Austin Dance Collective, by the way. So I had this vision. Down the line. I was like, I want to be able to produce a hub, and this is what fed into that whole South by Southwest thing. Not to get off topic, but I was just like, it is absolutely disrespectful how there's so much money that flows into this city and it doesn't even touch the dancers' hands. It doesn't touch any artist's hands. There's like, I mean, why are you importing all these people when it's right here? Why are you flying in whoever? Your artist could find just whoever you're paid that money, you could get it. I mean, literally, why? And then y'all have the audacity to be like, oh, well, we need to clean up the city. With whose money? Right. Austin Dance Collective. It is a place where if you're not from here, you can go and just learn, hear, know things. I would love to teach a class where I could teach people, hey, here are your basic rights working in the state of Texas and what you deserve, what you are entitled to, and what you yourself cannot work less than. This is what you need to take to your employer, whoever they are, because they are they are a facilitator in the state of Texas, and they have to abide to the same rules. Because too many of us don't know the rules, we can't hold them accountable. So if we all were on the same page, I promise you, some of these places would change their tune. That's all I wanted to say. Austin Dance Collective, just the hub of just information and how we get it out to the community. I don't know. I just feel like if we're smarter, we don't have to work as hard.
I feel like this comes back to what my mind goes is like, we as artists do want to, we want to collaborate and we want to share, but we have grown up in a capitalistic society where there is a limited amount of funds. So I find this grant and I right now want to share with everybody, but I know that if you apply and you apply and you apply and you apply, that is 5 people that I'm competing with. And I actually don't feel that pull, but it's a real thing. And that's like this idea that there's a finite amount of money and the competition is so intense because we all so badly just want our hearts to be seen and we want to be compensated for it.
God, say that again. We all so badly want our hearts to be seen. Shut up.
But it's true. Like, that's what it feels like when we perform. And then to like bare your soul and be like, oh, I guess I didn't make any money because all the ticket sales are now going to pay the lighting designer and the rental fee and the blah, blah, blah. But like this idea of the limited funding goes into like, we are all competing for grants and we are all working 7 jobs and trying to do our passion project on the side. And it's this like, that's why this ties into the like, should we dance for free? Because we just want to dance. And if somebody who has the information stands up and says like, no, I'm not going to do this for free, somebody is right behind them like, well, I'll do it. I'll do it for free. Because there's this mentality that we've grown up with that there's a finite amount of resources, there's a finite amount of money, and you have to step over somebody to get to it. And I don't think that that's true. And I don't think that it is going to be true. And it takes a lot of bravery to be the first people to be like, no, I'm not going to work because I know that you treated that last person. They told me that this was a really shitty job. So no, we're not going to let you hire anybody else. Like, but it takes a lot of bravery and it takes a lot of vulnerability to say like, we're in this together and we're going to support each other and not like we are making a pact to not step on each other to try to get to the money, to try to get to the opportunities. And that's hard.
And that's accreditation. That's exactly what everything she just said. All the other art forms have it. It just dance does not. It just doesn't. Like you come into this world, you're a dancer, you have a short life to live because we all know the choreography is just getting more and more crazier.
I think I think it's great though, Will, that you did bring up about and Lucy, what you're talking about, this competitiveness, and how what I heard from Lucy is that we actually all want to play together. Mm-hmm. And I know that I never really like not wanted to play with people. It's just trying to figure out my own way. But to Will's point and to Marina's point of us trying to come together and make ourselves stronger is that I know, for example, I found myself in a full-time, quote unquote, a full-time position dance company. So I am thinking that I am living the dream. It's something I've always grown up wanting. I've always wanted to be a full-time company member. While that was happening, I never found out until later that I was under a contract. I was working 40 hours a week for one business, and I was under an independent contractor contract. And of course, that if anybody is following with me right now, your eyes are getting big because you understand that means that come tax time, I am owing a lot of money. But also, it also means I'm paying for my own health insurance. I'm in charge of my own retirement fund. It's not like anyone's going to be matching my 401k. I didn't know that at the time. And for example, now I knew someone that went into that company full time, and I picked up the phone. I'm talking to this person and I said, did anyone tell you to open a savings account so that every paycheck that comes in, 15% of it's being pulled out? And this person said, nobody told me that. And I was like, great. That's my 2 cents for you. I'm going to do for you what nobody is. I don't want to say that nobody did it to me on purpose. It probably never crossed people who knew about its mind. Also, yeah, I don't feel like I've been personally victimized. And also, I always feel like I owe it to the Austin community to personally say I've never been asked to work for free. I found that work there has been extremely abundant for me. Los Angeles was harder. It was still okay. San Francisco and Israel, those I spent time there, but I just wanted to be really clear that don't feel that tension when I am personally in Austin. And I feel like it'd be a disservice to sit in the conversation and pretend like I do. But I do think that it's something that's interesting of why do we not know about the difference between how did that slip through and why does it take a quote unquote like financial abuse situation? And that's what I would really like to see is that you come to Austin, and especially I know that we are all extremely passionate about children in the arts. When you turn 18, if say, for example, a child turns 18 and they're in the Austin art scene and they say, hey, I want to start working in projects as an adult. I want to go to UT or I want to go to ACC or I want to take time off and I don't want to go to school at all. And I want to see what's going on here. I want to say, great, come to this financial class. Like, come hang out and we're all going to talk. I would love to have that group.
Also wanted to touch on another thing that Lucy had said, how the dance world is competitive. And it's because of that capitalism mindset. But the accreditation, that's what fixes that. Instead of making the artists competitive with each other, it makes the entities competitive with each other. So they have to now make them better. Like they have to offer health insurance if they want the best dancers and teachers to work for them. So if you're talking about the community buying on anything, if every dancer or every artist in this thing bought into this idea that like, we want y'all to step it up, they would have to. Otherwise, they can't replace us all. That's the best part. They can't replace us all. They need us to make their money. So, I mean, just, again, I said it last time, like Taekwondo, cheerleading, gymnastics, all of those places have a level of foundation of where they just cannot pass. They have to offer their teachers this. They have to offer this. They have to offer it. It's required. But if there is no accreditation and no one's holding anybody accountable, then any company, any studio can just literally do whatever they want, which makes it competitive on the low end.
Alisa, you brought up a good point, which is like, even artists just have like, even if we did organize something where it's like once a month, a bunch of artists meet virtually and we just talk, not even like have some sort of webinar that needs to be presented. If we just went into breakout rooms and almost like a mixer and just like give like a question of like, what's something you're struggling with right now in your career? And everyone just like gave their 2 cents about it. That would make everyone like feel probably more motivated and more fired up to go back and apply for those grants or to stand up to those studios that need to hold themselves to a better standard. I think I don't think this is an accident, but us feeling isolated prevents us from feeling motivated, which then prevents us from taking action.
There's too many artists who have to spread their lives too thin. And it only wasn't until I stepped out of the teaching world and got a full-time job doing something completely different, and I was able to fund myself, that I feel like that's when I became an artist, because I was able to fund myself instead of chasing my dreams, right? I was able to fund my dreams. And that's what goes back to that whole teaching for free. I only taught for free because I could afford it. And that also what made my community better, because then they were able to expose themselves to something that they normally wouldn't have. So they didn't have an obligation to, whatever, but I couldn't offer that to them if I was, exhausting myself every day. Like, then, yeah, I don't want to teach for free. But I mean, as an educator, as somebody who wants to give back to the community, who does not mind teaching for free, I would never do that if that's what my bills were relying on. No, of course not. No one should dance for free if that's what your money is coming from. But for those who have that other income, which I'm telling you, man, if it's not accreditation, then it needs to be like you have to have another job. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. You're going to starve yourself here, or you're waiting for that lightning bolt to hit you. Like, how many times have we all ran out to some big city to audition for something to wait for that lightning bolt to hit you so you can have just enough money to flaunt and pay your bills and maybe pay off your student loan debt? That lightning bolt don't strike often, and then that's why everybody went online to social media and TikTok and all this other stuff looking for a lightning bolt. It shouldn't have to be that way, especially if you did go to school to get that degree. You should just be able to, hey, this is what makes me worthy of having a higher paying position. I went to school for it. You should pay me extra for it. Now, am I saying that like someone who did not go to school should not be able to be paid that much and just based off their talent? Maybe, but man, there should be an audition process.
What I like am still trying to come to terms with is this idea that like, Will, you kind of spoke to it, like you can get another job and fund yourself and then be able to do your art. And I think like trying to be a dancer, especially in New York City, I believe this idea, and I think a lot of dancers do and a lot of artists do, that like I am only successful if I make my money doing my art. And my art is only successful if it makes money. And I don't think that those things are true. And it is like, I'm like shaking right now because I still believe it. I still believe that like, I don't deserve to make art unless I can make money doing it. And I don't deserve to make money unless I'm doing it from my passion. It's like, yeah, those things can be separated. And like, this is my, like, speaking directly to you. If you are watching, like, make your art and make your money. Like, you deserve to make money, you deserve to make art, and they don't have to be tied. And they can be tied. You deserve to get paid for your art. And they can exist separately and they can exist together. And it's all good. It's all good.
What would be your calls to action?
If I could rally every artist in this community behind the idea that they, and I do mean they, I don't care who it is, I don't care whose company it is, I don't care whose studio, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If we can make them see that your building won't stand without us. These kids won't come without us. The audiences won't come if we're not dancing. So you need to treat us better. Full stop. That is my call to action. You need to treat us better. You need to fund us. You need to give us health insurance. We need to be able to take care of our bodies so we can keep making you money. So you need to treat us better, not the other way around. Not we have to bend over backwards. Now we have to clock in early. We have to, write these submissions. We have to, like, there's too much. No. I should not have to work extra just to get paid what I'm already owed. You need to treat us better. And I mean that across the board to everyone, because I already know not every dancer, artist, singer, magician, not everyone is getting paid what they should be getting paid. And I think we should start there. I mean, yes, we're all getting a minimum wage is getting increased. Cool.
It's still the minimum.
Correct. It's still the minimum. We can do better. Austin can do better. There's too much money in this city for it to not. We just have to get the money into people's hand. And the only way to do that is if we all stand together and demand that things need to be better.
My call to action is to all of those grant dispersers. Whether you work for the city of Austin, maybe you work for a grant for Texas, maybe you work for the National Endowment Fund. I don't care. I think there needs to be a very, very close look at the barriers that there are for individual artists to apply for your money. Make it easier, make it more streamlined, make it less bureaucratic. Like, I shouldn't have to send an email to get an application in the mail. I shouldn't have to pay 2020 to apply.
Correct.
2021, you should be able to figure out a Google form at this point. So there's that call to action, like just streamline the infrastructure of applying. Second call to action is make grants more accessible to just individual artists, whether they're affiliated with an organization or not. Third call to action, if you are one of those arts organizations and you have a collection of artists that you really like to hire over and over and over again, let them know that if they ever need someone to co-sign their application for a grant, that they can come to you. Because having the invitation to call on you and like be able to rely on your help will probably help, like we're talking about, feeling energized and motivated and supported to go and fight and claim for that money that's yours, rather than like us feeling skittish about asking an artistic director for funding. Like,
right,
get known to your artists that you want to support them and you want to co-sign their individual projects and help them get that funding.
I think maybe the call to action is I don't know if I'm capable of doing it. I know that growing up in the Austin dance scene, I was really there and really in the scene and like in a lot of different ways. And so I'm lucky to be a part of that. And I feel that in ways I do have a foundation and I have a privilege that I do come from a place where maybe I am in a position to start exactly what I'm talking about. And maybe I do need to call on myself to say, this is, hey, anybody that wants to come, let's come and hang out with each other and let's figure out how we can support each other. And if you move to Austin or if you're an artist in Austin, you belong and you have a place to support you when you are feeling depleted, when you are looking for knowledge, when you're looking for modern classes, when you're trying to figure out how to write a grant. I think that I know that organizations are incredibly supportive and I know that that's happening. I want to see it in a different way. And maybe that is what I'll take away from tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I second and third and fourth, all of these things. I just say, like, if you're not an artist, pay for art. If you are an artist, pay for art. If you have a friend who's doing a show and they offer you free tickets, buy your tickets. And it's this across disciplines too. Like when you see somebody busking on the street, like change adds up, you know, like we need people who are not in the arts to support the arts. And we need people who appreciate art to not just go see the Nutcracker, but to maybe, it can still be ballet if you like ballet, but it doesn't have to be the Nutcracker. And if you are an artist, support your artistic friends and encourage them, because like, you know how hard this is for you. And like, we all feel isolated at times and we all feel like we need to turn our brains off. Like we all feel just like moments of tired. But if we can, as tired as you might be, somebody else might be feeling really good and really high. And if you're feeling really good and really high, try to support the people who are not feeling that way. And that just comes down to like, when you're up, check on the people below you. And when you're down, don't be afraid to look up and ask for help. And
girl, come on, Lucy, damn. You're killing me. Come on, Lucy. I want all her sound bites. You cut all of hers and you send them to me. I need that to be my alarm.
That was good.
Oh my God. I'm blushing. Thank you. I'm feeling very full from the compliment. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, you deserve it. Like, oh.
Yeah.
I love when people are just spitting just feelings and they just hit things like that. And you're just like, damn, yes. You don't know who needed to hear that. And I mean, let me just testify right now. I needed to hear that.
I needed to hear it. I'm saying these things because I need to hear it. It's so much easier said than done. It's so much easier said than done.
twice tonight. I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, that's what I live for. This connection, this community, even though we're not together, like just being able to sit somewhere and just share our experiences and also provide knowledge for all of us, because I'm sure we all learned something new in this conversation that we probably did not already know before. So I know I did. And I mean, yeah, when it comes down to that question, like, hey, I want to be a professional dancer too. Yeah, there's been too many times I've taken somebody to Starbucks or Subway and been like, here's what you got to know. This ain't easy and it's a hustle. So you need to know this, you want to know this. I would love to give some kind of class to these younger dancers or younger artists who are just like, I want to be this professionally. How do I make it happen? All right, let's talk about your taxes. Let's talk about, your rights. Let's talk about, what you're entitled to. Let's talk about maybe a subsidized income. Like, what happens if you don't get that job? Are you going to be okay? Like, you need to have, let's be smart. Don't just be like, oh, I just want to dance. Like, it doesn't work that way. The movies are a lie. All those movies, oh, let's just go to a competition and then we're going to win this big old pot and everyone gets to go away happily ever after. No, that money runs dry and it's taxed.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. Like, it's just the facade. The facade has been perpetuated that, when you're a dancer, you're just supposed to get hit by that lightning bolt and your problems are over. You get on stage, you get that one moment to shine and everyone pays your tickets and you get your roses. And then it's like, damn, my rent's still due. Right. Right. That's that, I don't know, man. I love it. I will say this, even with all the heartache and all the hard times, the financial struggles, I would never change a minute of it because I've also made some strong connections that I'll take to the grave. There's some people that I just absolutely love that I never would have danced next to if I just would have just left Austin. So I don't know. I'm very full with where my career has taken me, and I'm very full from this conversation. And man, you just inspired me to just start demanding what we need. Like, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to start knocking on doors and be like, hey, are you paying?
The phrase tonight is Austin can do better. Honestly.
Yes. Austin can do better. There's too much money in this city to where we can't fund the art community, to where we all can't get a performance going once a month, twice a month.
We can be just as great of an artist hub as LA or Atlanta or New York or Chicago.
We threw that Formula One track together in less than 3 months.
Yeah. And with that being said, thank you everybody for being a part of the show today. We really appreciate you. Thank you for listening and tuning in, and we can't wait to see you next time and keep doing the work.